afternoon. This fire started on Monday afternoon, which seems like several years ago now by everything we've done, but it's only been a few days, and in that time we've burned over 22,000 acres. This fire started off as a wind-driven fire, which means that when it first ignited, the wind caught it and ran. It ran 4,000 acres in the first burning period, the first afternoon. During that first afternoon, evacuations in the Apple Valley area were very difficult to do. We lost 3 permanent homes, 3 mobile homes in that area, but we managed to get everybody out safe and sound. A team was ordered, which is my team. It's a National Type 1 Incident Response Team. We took management of this fire on Tuesday at 1800. Since then, we are putting in place a strategy where we are, from the point of origin, working our way east, putting in fire lines to try and contain it. So across the whole southern end of the fire right now, which is pretty much paralleling the Highway 74, we have been putting in fire line there. We've evacuated the town and area of Trails End because the fire yesterday started backing down the slope into that area. It has slopped over into the other side, onto the desert side, and it's within 2 miles of Palm Springs. We've been concentrating effort in there to keep it on mid-slope using helicopters and retardant. So far, so good. It's hanging up very nicely on the mid-slopes and going out on that side. On this side, on the Idlewild side, yesterday it made a major push to the northwest, and it started going over the top into the drainage just the other side of this range you can see right here. It was running pretty hard yesterday. It was putting up a column that was somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30,000 foot elevation. What we're concerned about is what you see right here. When you get a column that puts out this much smoke, embers get into the column and can drop anywhere. It's going, for the next 2 days, it's predicted to go right over the top of this town. We also have fire at the top of very steep slopes. If it gets down those slopes and makes a major run, we wouldn't have very much time to get people out of here. The evacuation plans that this community and most of the mountain communities around here have done are excellent. We got to test it yesterday. It told us that we'd need at least 12 hours to move everybody out of this town. We erred on the side of caution. We asked everybody to leave last night. We recommended it from the fire to the sheriffs that we get everybody out of here so that we can secure this without having to worry about folks in the way. We have several hotshot crews, several CAL FIRE resources. We are using quite the fleet of aircraft to fight this fire. We are the national priority right now, and we're doing pretty well. What you'll see right now is what's different for a wildland fire than, like, say, a structure fire. Usually when you see the column drop down on a structure fire, you're thinking, okay, we got it pretty secure. In a wildland fire, that's not necessarily the case. It just means you got a lull where you can start roping in more of it. Right now we're into what we call the bewitching hours. This is when the column's going to start standing up on us, and this is when it's going to start moving. We were very inverted with smoke this morning. The inversion is starting to lift. Once it starts to lift, that's when the column is going to start to lift because it kind of preheats everything. We have 11 air tankers that we're using to hold this in place. We have about 17 helicopters that we're using. We have almost 3,000 people assigned to this fire. If we can, we're working very diligently now with the aircraft and the hotshots to hit the stuff that's on this side of the ridge, of the South Ridge, contained. Once we get that contained and we're sure that with the movement northwest that it's continuing to do, that it doesn't hook around and come back to Idlewild from a different direction, then we'll probably go ahead and lift we'll recommend to the sheriff to lift the evacuations. But right now it's only been since last night. We haven't gotten to the bewitching hour yet, per se. We don't know what it's going to run today. We put a lot of stuff in place to hold it. We'll see how that goes. We are pretty concerned about the incoming weather. This area is influenced by the monsoons coming up out of Mexico. There is no guarantee that it'll bring us rain. What it could bring us is just wind or dry lightning. Either one is not a good option. That's why we're trying to contain it as fast as we can now. It's close enough that if it made a run into Idlewild, we could do some stuff to slow it down, but I don't know that we would stop it.
Last night at 5:45 p.m., the Sheriff's Department started what we call a reverse 911. We sent out a pre-recorded message to over 2,600 phone numbers in the 9.4 square mile area in this mountain community of Idlewild. It proved to be very successful when we brought our mobile field forces of deputies to knock on every door to advise them of the evacuation order. We found that a majority of the residents had already left. By early this morning, about 10 o'clock this morning, we had completed, and we knocked on every door in this town of Idlewild to advise every resident of the evacuation order. So as it stands now, we're formulating the repopulation plan for whenever that does occur, and we're maintaining patrols of the area that's been evacuated.
Any sense of how many people stayed behind?
The question is there any sense of how many people stayed behind? My sense is that those we contacted, fewer than 5% refused the evacuation order.
Town is under a mandatory evacuation order. We appreciate those folks who've already heeded that order, and we're encouraging those who have stayed behind to heed that order and leave. We cannot guarantee your safety should the fire run into town. We're optimistic and trying to remain optimistic that our partners in the incident management team and our firefighters underground can keep this on the other side of the ridge so that it doesn't come into town.